What if the most powerful food you could grow in your backyard has been quietly discouraged, overlooked, or outright ignored by the modern food system? Not by accident, not by coincidence, but because certain crops are simply too self-sufficient, too nutritious, and too easy to grow for everyday people to depend on something they do not buy from a store. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on 18 underground crops that most Americans have never heard of, but that gardeners and healers around the world have relied on for thousands of years. These are roots, tubers, and buried treasures that can grow right in your own backyard, often with almost no effort at all. And stay with us, because number 11 is going to genuinely surprise you. There is a plant that was once considered a vital food source for Native American communities across the entire eastern United States, and it has nearly vanished from the American garden. We will get to that. If you are new to the Evergreen Garden family, hit that subscribe button right now. We put out natural wellness and gardening content every week that you simply will not find anywhere else. Now let's get started. Number 1. Jerusalem artichoke. Most people drive right past this plant without knowing it. The Jerusalem artichoke has absolutely nothing to do with Jerusalem and nothing to do with a traditional artichoke. What it is one of the most productive underground crops that can grow on American soil. Native American tribes across North America were cultivating and eating Jerusalem artichoke tubers long before European settlers arrived. The Lenape, the Ojibwe, and dozens of other nations stored and cooked these knobby little roots as a winter food staple. Modern science has caught up with something those communities already knew. Jerusalem artichokes are packed with inulin, a type of prebiotic fiber that feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. Research published in nutritional journals has found that inulin can help regulate blood sugar, support digestion, and even improve calcium absorption in older adults. You plant the tubers in early spring and largely forget about them. By fall, each plant will have multiplied several times over, and you can harvest a full bucket of food from just a few square feet. This plant grows vigorously in USDA zones 3 through 9, which covers nearly every state in the continental United States. Think of it as a bank account that pays you back in food. You put one tuber in the ground, and the earth returns it to you tenfold. Number 2. OCA. Here is one that most American gardeners have never laid eyes on. Osa is a small, waxy tuber that looks like a shrunken sweet potato wearing stripes. It comes in red, yellow, orange, and white varieties, and has been a cornerstone food crop in the Andes of South America for more than 8,000 years. The Inca Empire did not build its civilization on corn alone. Oca was considered just as important, stored in vast quantities, and traded across mountain regions where other crops could not survive the altitude and cold. What makes oca remarkable for the modern gardener is its nutritional profile. It is high in vitamin C, potassium, and oxalic acid, which gives it a pleasantly tangy flavor when eaten raw. When you leave freshly harvested oca in the sun for a few days, the starches convert to sugar, and the sourness mellows into something almost sweet and buttery. Oca grows best in USDA zones 7 through 10, making it a natural fit for gardeners in the South, the Pacific Northwest, and coastal California. You can also grow it in containers if you live in a cooler zone, which means more people than you might expect can enjoy this crop. Think of it as nature's answer to the potato, except with a personality the potato never quite developed. Number 3. Mashua. If plants could keep secrets, mashua would be very good at it. This colorful tuber from the high Andes has been grown for at least 4,000 years, and it has some truly unusual properties that the modern food industry has had very little interest in promoting. Mashua was grown by Andean communities not only for its generous yield, but for its medicinal qualities. Traditional healers used it to suppress appetite, and, interestingly, historical accounts suggest that Incan rulers reportedly fed large quantities of mashua to their soldiers to reduce certain desires and keep armies focused. That is a real piece of food history. Modern researchers have found that mashua contains significant levels of glucosinolates, the same compounds found in broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables that are associated with cancer protective properties. It also has natural antibiotic and antifungal activity, which is why Andean farmers often grew it right alongside other crops to protect the garden. Mashua grows well in USDA zones 7 through 10. It is frost-sensitive, but grows so vigorously that a single season will reward you with more tubers than you planted by a wide margin. The flavor is earthy and slightly peppery when raw, mellowing into something more complex when roasted. Think of it as the garden's quiet bodyguard, protecting your health and the health of every plant growing around it. Number 4, yacon. This one grows underground, but almost nobody outside of a small circle of dedicated gardeners knows it exists. Yacon is a South American root vegetable that tastes like a cross between an apple and a pear, stores like a potato, and behaves in your body like almost no other food on the planet. The Inca grew yacon thousands of years ago and prized it for its remarkable sweetness and its ability to stay crisp and refreshing even after storage. Spanish chronicles from the 16th century describe yacon as the food travelers reached for on long mountain journeys. Here is the part that modern nutritional science has confirmed. Yacon is loaded with fructooligosaccharides, which are sugars your body cannot absorb. That means yacon tastes genuinely sweet without raising your blood sugar. Multiple clinical studies have found that regular yacon consumption significantly reduces fasting blood sugar and improves insulin sensitivity, making it an extraordinary food for older adults watching their glucose levels. Yacon grows best in USDA zones 7 through 11. It loves warm weather and can reach 6 feet tall above ground while quietly building a massive cluster of tubers below. You harvest in late fall after the first frost kills the leaves. Think of it as sweetness with no strings attached, a treat your body can enjoy without the usual consequences. Number 5, skirret. This one was once so beloved in Europe and early colonial America that cooks wrote poems about it. Then it disappeared almost entirely from Western gardens, and nobody quite remembers why. Skirret was grown throughout medieval Europe and brought to the Americas by early settlers. Historical records show it was a regular feature in the kitchen gardens of colonial Virginia and New England, valued for its clusters of sweet, parsnip-like roots that held up through the winter in root cellars. The roots are high in carbohydrates and dietary fiber, offering steady energy without spikes. They also contain significant vitamin C, which was invaluable in centuries when fresh produce disappeared entirely in the colder months. Traditional European herbalists used skirret root preparations to support kidney function and urinary health. Skirret thrives in USDA zones 4 through 8, which means gardeners across the Midwest, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Upper South can grow it beautifully. It prefers a cool growing season and actually produces better roots in the second year, making it a perfect perennial addition to any kitchen garden. Think of it as a piece of American food history growing quietly in the dirt, waiting to come back. Number 6, crosnes. The name sounds French, and it is. Crosnes, also called Chinese artichokes or Japanese artichokes, depending on where you encounter them, are tiny spiral-shaped tubers about the size of your fingertip that pack a surprising amount of flavor and nutrition into a very small package. They were introduced to France from China in the 1880s and became a brief sensation in Parisian kitchens before quietly fading from Western cooking. In Japan and China, they never went away. They are still used in New Year celebration dishes and traditional cuisine across East Asia. Crosnes are rich in stachyose, a prebiotic compound that nourishes beneficial gut bacteria, much like inulin does. They are also a source of iron, phosphorus, and B vitamins. Traditional Chinese medicine has used crosnes preparations to support cognitive clarity and nervous system calm in older patients. They grow in USDA zones 5 through 9, spreading underground once established. The harvest is labor-intensive because the small tubers tuck themselves into every corner of the soil, but the flavor, which is crisp and slightly sweet, is worth the effort. Think of it as a hidden gem that fits in the palm of your hand and earns its place in any garden that takes nutrition seriously. Number 7, ulluco. If you have never heard of ulluco, you are in good company. Most American gardeners have not, and that is a real shame, because this Andean root vegetable is one of the most productive, nutritious, and visually striking crops you can grow. Ulluco tubers come in vivid shades of yellow, pink, red, and purple that look almost artificial. Andean communities have cultivated this crop for at least 7,000 years, and it remains one of the most important food crops in Bolivia and Peru to this day. The nutritional value is extraordinary. Ulluco is high in protein compared to most root vegetables, rich in B vitamins, and contains a compound called betaine that has been studied for its role in reducing inflammation and supporting liver function. The leaves are also edible and nutritious, making this a true whole plant crop that wastes nothing. Ulluco grows best in USDA zones 8 through 10, favoring mild, cool summer climates like coastal California and the Pacific Northwest. It is a short-day plant, meaning it forms tubers as the days shorten in autumn, so patience is part of the harvest. Think of it as one of the most colorful and complete foods the earth knows how to make, sitting quietly in a corner of the world most gardeners never visit. Number 8. Groundnut or hopniss. Now here is that crop we promised you earlier. This one is not just fascinating, it may be one of the most criminally overlooked plants in North American food history. Hopniss, also called American groundnut or Apios americana, is a native vine that produces small, protein-rich tubers along its underground runners. It was a foundational food for dozens of indigenous nations from the Atlantic coast all the way to the Mississippi River. The Wampanoag people, who shared food with the Pilgrims at that first Thanksgiving, had survived for generations on groundnut tubers. Some historians believe these tubers were actually on the table at that gathering. Nutritional analysis shows that groundnut tubers contain roughly 3 times the protein of potatoes. They are also a source of iron, calcium, and antioxidants. Modern researchers at Louisiana State University spent years in the late 20th century working on cultivated varieties of hopniss, precisely because they recognized its potential as a high-protein food crop for American agriculture. Hopniss grows in USDA zones 3 through 9 and actually fixes nitrogen in the soil as it grows, meaning it makes the surrounding garden more fertile just by being there. Plant it near a fence or trellis and let it climb. Think of it as a living piece of this continent's original food wisdom, rooted in American soil and waiting to feed you. Number 9. Tiger nuts. These are not nuts. They do not grow on trees. They are small, chewy tubers that grow underground on a type of sedge grass, and they have been a human food source for longer than almost anything else on this list. Archaeological evidence from ancient Egypt shows tiger nuts were stored in pharaohs' tombs as food for the afterlife. More remarkable is the research suggesting that the earliest ancestors of modern humans may have relied heavily on tiger nuts as a dietary staple in sub-Saharan Africa, going back millions of years. Tiger nuts are exceptionally high in resistant starch, healthy fats, and magnesium. They have a natural sweetness and a flavor that resembles coconut mixed with almond. Clinical studies have found that tiger nut preparations significantly reduce LDL cholesterol and blood glucose levels, and their high oleic acid content mirrors the fat profile of olive oil. In the United States, tiger nuts grow well in USDA zones 7 through 11. They prefer sandy soil and warm temperatures, and can be harvested after about 4 months. You can eat them raw, dried, roasted, or blended into a creamy milk that is popular in Spain as horchata de chufa. Think of it as one of the oldest foods in human history, small enough to hold between 2 fingers and powerful enough to have kept our ancestors alive for generations. Number 10. Scorzonera. This one has a name that sounds like it belongs in a spy novel, and a flavor that belongs on a fine dining table. Scorzonera is a black-rooted vegetable, sometimes called black salsify, that has been prized in European cooking for centuries and virtually forgotten in the American garden. Medieval European physicians used scorzonera as an antidote to snakebite, which is where some historians believe the name comes from. By the 17th century, it had become a fashionable vegetable across France, England, and Germany, appearing in court cuisine and royal gardens. The root is rich in inulin, iron, potassium, and vitamin C and E. Modern European research has focused on scorzonera's antioxidant content, finding it comparable to many berries and far above what most common root vegetables offer. The flavor is mild and sweet, often described as resembling oysters or artichoke hearts once cooked. Scorzonera is a perennial in USDA zones 3 through 8, making it one of the most cold-hardy crops on this list. It actually improves in flavor after a frost, much like parsnips do. You can harvest roots in the first year or leave them to grow larger in the second for an even more impressive result. Think of it as the underground vegetable that European royalty kept to themselves for too long and America has been slow to discover. Number 11. Hamburg parsley root. Most Americans know parsley as a green garnish that goes to the edge of the plate and gets left behind. But there is an entirely different variety of parsley that produces a substantial, carrot-shaped root below ground, and it has been nourishing European families through cold winters for centuries. Hamburg parsley, sometimes called turnip-rooted parsley, was a staple in Polish, German, and Eastern European kitchens long before potatoes arrived from the New World. It flavors soups, stews, and stocks with a deep, complex taste that falls somewhere between parsley, celery root, and carrot. The root is rich in folate, vitamin C, potassium, and the flavonoid apigenin, which has been studied extensively for its anti-inflammatory and potential neuroprotective properties. Research published in neurological journals has found apigenin may help protect brain cells and support cognitive function in aging adults, which makes Hamburg parsley particularly worth knowing about. It grows reliably in USDA zones 4 through 9 and prefers cool weather, making it ideal for fall planting in most American regions. Both the root and the leaves are edible, and both are more intensely flavored than standard parsley. Think of it as the humble kitchen ingredient that Eastern European grandmothers never went without, hiding a remarkable nutritional story beneath the soil. Number 12. Artichoke. Here is an underground crop that is wildly popular in South America and almost completely unknown in the United States, even though it could grow beautifully in much of the southern half of the country. Artichoke, sometimes called white carrot or Peruvian parsnip, is a root vegetable with a flavor somewhere between carrot, celery, and roasted chestnut. It is so popular in Brazil that it outsells carrots in certain markets and is a common ingredient in baby food because it is exceptionally easy to digest. The starch in artichoke is fine-grained and easy on the stomach, making it one of the gentlest root vegetables for older adults with sensitive digestion. It is also a meaningful source of calcium, vitamin A, and riboflavin. Traditional medicine in Colombia and Venezuela used artichoke as a strengthening food for the elderly and recovering patients. Artichoke grows in USDA zones 8 through 11, favoring the warm climates of Florida, Texas, Southern California, and the Gulf Coast. It takes about a year to fully mature and rewards patient gardeners with large, flavorful roots that can be roasted, boiled, mashed, or added to soups. Think of it as South America's best-kept grocery secret, quietly thriving below the surface while remaining almost invisible on American radar. Number 13. Lotus root. Most people know the lotus flower as a spiritual symbol. Fewer know that beneath that floating bloom sits one of the most nutritionally dense root vegetables in the world, and it has been eaten across Asia for at least 3,000 years. In traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine, lotus root was used to strengthen the lungs, calm the mind, and support the blood. Buddhist monks consumed it regularly as a cooling, grounding food during periods of extended meditation or fasting. Lotus root is exceptionally high in vitamin C, dietary fiber, and thiamine. It also contains a compound called nuciferine that researchers have studied for its potential role in reducing anxiety and supporting cardiovascular health. The unique channel structure inside the root, those beautiful holes you see in cross-section, is not just decorative. It is what allows the plant to transport oxygen down to its underwater growing environment. In the United States, lotus grows vigorously in USDA zones 5 through 10 in ponds, water barrels, or large containers with standing water. You can harvest the roots in fall and winter by reaching into the muddy water below the plant. The flavor is mild and slightly sweet, and the texture holds up beautifully in stir-fries and soups. Think of it as a meditation on patience, because the most beautiful and nourishing things sometimes grow where you least think to look. Number 14. Cassava. This one you may have encountered in certain grocery stores under the name yucca, though it looks nothing like a yucca plant. Cassava is one of the most widely grown root vegetables in the world, and one of the most completely ignored in the American home garden. More than 800 million people rely on cassava as a primary food source. It originated in South America and was carried across the Atlantic during the colonial era, where it took root so thoroughly in Africa and Asia that many countries now grow more cassava than the continent where it was first cultivated. Cassava is calorie-dense, gluten-free, and rich in resistant starch. The flour made from dried cassava root, called tapioca or cassava flour, has become increasingly popular in American kitchens in recent years as a grain-free alternative for baking. It is also a meaningful source of vitamin C and manganese. Cassava grows in USDA zones 8 through 11, thriving in the hot, humid climates of Florida, Texas, and Southern California. It requires a long growing season of 8 to 10 months and genuinely needs very little care. The raw root contains compounds that must be cooked out before eating, so always cook cassava thoroughly. Think of it as the world's most democratic food, grown by the poorest communities on Earth because nothing else produces so much nutrition from so little care. Number 15. Jicama. This one has been sneaking into American salads for a few decades now, but almost nobody grows it at home, and that is a missed opportunity of considerable size. Jicama, pronounced jicama, is a large, round tuber from Mexico and Central America with a crisp, slightly sweet interior that tastes like a cross between an apple and a water chestnut. It has been cultivated in Mexico for at least 3,000 years and spread across the Philippines and Southeast Asia during the Spanish trade era. The nutritional profile is genuinely impressive. Jicama is extremely low in calories, but high in vitamin C and dietary fiber, particularly inulin. Multiple studies have confirmed its role in supporting digestive health and blood sugar regulation. It is also unusually high in water content, making it a natural hydrating food in hot climates. Jicama grows in USDA zones 9 through 11, requiring a long, warm season of at least 9 months to produce large roots. Gardeners in Texas, Arizona, Florida, and Southern California can grow it with excellent results. Note that only the root is edible. The seeds and leaves contain a natural compound called rotenone and should not be consumed. Think of it as the underground vegetable that refreshes you twice, once when you pull it from the earth and once when you eat it on a hot summer afternoon. Number 16. Arrowhead. Here is a Native American plant that once fed entire communities along the rivers and wetlands of North America, and it has been so thoroughly removed from the American food conversation that most people would walk right past it without a second look. Arrowhead, also called duck potato or wapato, grows in shallow water and wet soils and produces starchy tubers along its underwater roots. Lewis and Clark encountered native communities eating arrowhead tubers along the Columbia River during their expedition and described the plant in their journals as a significant food resource. The tubers are high in starch, protein for a root vegetable, and potassium. Traditionally, women would wade into shallow water and use their feet to dislodge the tubers, which then floated to the surface for collection. The flavor once cooked is similar to a mild potato, with a slightly nuttier aftertaste. Arrowhead grows naturally in USDA zones 5 through 10, thriving at the edges of ponds, streams, and in rain gardens or bog containers. If you have any wet or low-lying area in your yard that you have been struggling with, Arrowhead is a productive and beautiful solution. Think of it as America's forgotten aquatic harvest, waiting at the water's edge for the gardeners willing to get their feet wet. Number 17. Purple yams. The purple yam, known in the Philippines as ube and in Japan as murasaki imo, is not the same as the orange sweet potato Americans call a yam at Thanksgiving. It is a true yam with a deep violet flesh and a flavor profile that is earthy, slightly sweet, and unmistakably complex. Purple yams have been cultivated in tropical Asia for thousands of years and are deeply woven into the culinary traditions of the Philippines, Okinawa, and Hawaii. In Okinawa, purple yam is considered one of the dietary factors behind the region's extraordinary longevity rates. Okinawans historically had some of the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world, and researchers have long studied their diet for answers. Purple yams are extremely rich in anthocyanins, the same antioxidant pigments found in blueberries and blackberries. These compounds have been studied for their role in reducing oxidative stress, lowering inflammation, and protecting cardiovascular health. They also provide a meaningful supply of vitamin C, potassium, and dietary fiber. In the United States, purple yams grow in USDA zones 9 through 12, making them ideal for Florida, Hawaii, coastal California, and the Deep South. In cooler zones, they can be grown in large containers and brought indoors before the first frost. Think of it as the longevity food that an island of centenarians quietly kept at the center of every meal, and an invitation to do the same. Number 18. Earthnut pea. We are ending this list with one of the most remarkable and least known underground crops in all of North American and European food history. The earthnut pea, also called Lathyrus tuberosus, produces small, sweet, walnut-sized tubers on underground runners and was once gathered and eaten across Europe and parts of the Middle East for thousands of years. The earthnut pea grows wild across parts of Europe and Western Asia and was such a reliable wild food that peasant communities in France and the Netherlands gathered and traded it freely for centuries. In times of famine, it kept people alive. In ordinary times, it was considered a delicacy, sold in Dutch markets through the 17th century. The tubers are high in protein, starch, and minerals. The flavor has been described as sweet and chestnut-like when roasted, with a richness that is unusual for such a small root. The plant also fixes nitrogen in the soil, meaning it works to improve soil fertility while it feeds you. Earthnut pea grows in USDA zones 5 through 9 and is extremely cold hardy once established. It is a vining plant that spreads via underground runners, so give it a defined bed or container to prevent it from wandering. The flowers are beautifully fragrant, a deep rosy pink, so it earns its place in the garden even before harvest. Think of it as the most complete underground gift the soil can offer. Beauty above the ground and food below. A reminder that the most valuable things in life are often the ones quietly growing where no one thinks to look. And there you have it. 18 underground crops that have fed civilizations, survived empires, and nourished communities across thousands of years of human history. These are not exotic experiments. These are real foods that belong in American soil and on American tables, quietly waiting for the gardeners willing to rediscover them. Now I want to hear from you. Which underground crop surprised you the most today? Drop your answer in the comments below. Team Jerusalem artichoke, Team tiger nuts, or Team earthnut pea? Let's see which one our community is most excited to grow. If you found this video valuable, do not forget to share it with someone who loves their garden. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. The Evergreen Garden community is growing every single week, and we would love to have you with us. Until next time, keep your hands in the soil and your roots running deep.